Habari za wakati huu mpenzi mtazamaji, umetufuatilia katika YouTube online ya TBC. Tutakuwa na mjadala mfupi na mwakilishi kutoka shirika la Umoja wa Mataifa linalohusika na utalii duniani UNWTO, anaitwa Sandra Carvalho, na tutazungumza naye kuhusiana na vijiji vya utalii. Hii ni dhana mpya ambayo shirika hili la Umoja wa Mataifa imekuja nalo katika kuhakikisha wananchi kule vijijini kote barani Afrika, lakini kote duniani wananufaika na faida za moja kwa moja za utalii katika maeneo yao. Na mjadala huu utakuwa kwa lugha ya Kiingereza. Tafadhali tufuatilie katika mitandao ya kijamii TBC online, kule YouTube tutapatikana mubashara tukizungumza na Sandra Carvalho ambaye yeye ni mkurugenzi wa masoko, intelijensia ya masoko pamoja na ushindani kutoka shirika hilo la Umoja wa Mataifa la UNWTO, na mimi mtangazaji wako ni Gloria Michael. Tunajiungana na Sandra akiwa Handora na mimi nikiwa Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Karibu tuwe sote ndani ya sekunde chache atajiunga na sisi, lakini lugha tutakayotumia katika mjadala wetu huu ni lugha ya Kiingereza. Kwa hiyo tafadhali kuwa na sisi na tunakaribisha sana kujiunga na sisi. Namuona Sandra amerudi. Hi Sandra, how are you?
Hey, I'm back.
Nice to have you back. I was just doing a little briefing to our dear viewers that are following us on TBC Online on our YouTube line and telling them what we're going to discuss in here and why is it important to have such a discussion at times like this. To my dear viewer and my dear Zoom member who's just joining right now, we're going to have a discussion with Sandra Carvalho. As I told you, she's the Director of Market Intelligence and Competitiveness from United Nations World Tourism Organization. And today our main topic is the role of tourism villages. Sandra, for a person who hears this for the very first time, what's the meaning of tourism villages actually, and what came to the thought behind it to actually start this initiative?
Thank you so much, Gloria. It's a pleasure to be with you and be able to share the Best Tourism Villages initiative by UNWTO. The idea came last year and we launched the first pilot in May 2021, realizing on one side the importance of rural tourism for the development of the country. So to make sure that the benefits of tourism can actually go beyond, I would say, the hotspots that people will generally visit. And at the same time, because in the vision of our Secretary General, he had dedicated 2020 to the year of tourism and rural development. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit us and tourism, as you know, was one of the most affected sectors. But at the same time, the pandemic also opened many opportunities for rural areas because tourists were looking to open spaces, different experiences, less crowded destinations. So I would say both things came together. And for us, launching this initiative is a way to say how tourism can actually benefit communities in rural areas, bring them jobs, retain population, because we know how it is difficult all around the world to ensure that population stays in rural areas, but at the same time that we can work towards the full integration of the different sectors. So for example, agriculture and tourism, handicrafts and tourism, culture and tourism, because there's a huge opportunity in rural areas to really bring new experiences to tourists.
You said you started on May 2021, and then you had the Best Tourism Villages Awards, and you had some sample villages. What was the criterion for one village to actually participate in such a competition?
Perfect. So basically the competition is open to all UNWTO member states. So it's up to each of the ministries of tourism in the countries to propose to UNWTO a total of maximum of 3 villages that they consider are acting and have projects that are in line with the 9 areas of evaluation of the initiative. And the 9 areas of evaluation consider the existing resources, obviously cultural resources, natural resources, but also very importantly, the initiatives that are being developed by the villages themselves to promote tourism in terms of sustainable sector. So initiatives that have to do with the protection of environment, initiatives in terms of social sustainability, can be gender equality, it can be fostering the youth participation in tourism, and then also how tourism is included as a priority for the village. Is there a structure that takes care of tourism? How is the connections to the village? So all these factors are obviously evaluated depending on the context, because we also know different countries will have different situations. And based on those, we have an advisory board independent from UNWTO who represents different areas of culture, tourism, design, very wide board, and they do the assessment and they do the evaluation. So we chose more than 40 villages in the first initiative announcement, which was done in December. And we also, besides those, we also chose another 20, which will be now included in something which is called an upgrade program. So we're now having one-to-one sessions with each of those villages, the 20, to understand their needs on how can we mentor them to improve the areas that were not as positively evaluated by the advisory board as the other ones.
I would really want to understand how this board really works. As I was going through, I know that in Africa, and specifically this topic talks about Africa, we have almost like 5 countries in Africa and around 6 to 7 villages in here. How is the board working? Does it really goes to those nations, goes to the rural areas, and actually sees everything according to the standard that has been set?
Well, in this initial phase, all the candidacies were done online. So obviously all the information was passed to the jury. And now we're talking to each of the villages to understand where they are. And also, importantly, we will create a network of all the villages around the world. So end of this month, on the 30th, we will have more than 60 villages around the world meeting online to exchange experiences and also to learn from each other. This was something that for us is very important, because there's villages doing very interesting things and very impactful things that can be replicated in others. So this will be part of the program for the villages. At the same time, they will also be during the whole year having specific master classes on topics like storytelling, marketing, product development, human resources, things that are important for them to develop tourism. So the moment they are selected, it's not just an award, because this is important for us. It's really that they become part of a network that will work together and be trained on different aspects, but also exchange information among them. Every year we will launch again the initiative. So this year we will be opening the candidacies on the 28th of March for the year 2022. And by the end of 2022, we will announce the new best tourism villages, which again will join the others in the network. So as we go along, the idea is that the network can grow and grow, and we will have partners from different areas with us that can also help them in improving their performance.
There is a very special group actually that really doesn't want to stay in the rural areas. Let's talk about the youth. How are they engaged in making sure that possibly this initiative might force them or might make them want to be in the villages because they know something is coming out of it? And how is it going to combat the issue of unemployment, which it's a global movement?
Perfect, Gloria. Now, that's probably one of the most important challenges of rural tourism. And for us, it's critical, because if there is an increased demand for the village, then you can have new businesses, you can have new accommodation, you can have new experiences being offered. And this is where we want to help the villages in developing their products, in developing their offer, in a sense of saying there is an opportunity either for the youth that already lives there, which can be trained, or there is an opportunity for the youth that's left and say, okay, I want to help my village back. I know my village better than anyone else. So I can set up, a coffee shop, anything. Sometimes we think very, elaborated tourism products, but often it is the need also to integrate what is the product, for example, in terms of agriculture, that is very common in the village. Can we transform it in a way that can be fed into the tourism value chain as part of the tourism experience. So this is the work that we want to do with the villages as well. Each of them obviously has their own characteristics, and we want to make sure, obviously, that we are also targeting the needs of the individual ones.
How was the pilot project, let's say? How was it? You said that people came online. Currently, someone told me they're coming from the Zoom to the rooms. So they're actually going to physical contacts. How was the choosing? I'm quite sure you had a lot of people wanting to participate, sending their villages and doing something in order to show their participation in it. How was it that these 44 villages actually really fulfills all the criteria to be termed as the best ones?
Yeah, well, obviously the online today is another world. It also allows us to have contact with people in a much more effective way. We're here today, so that's very good. But the good thing as well is that the candidacy file is very detailed. So whoever provides the information, they need to give you the proof of what they're doing as well. So it's very much saying, okay, you know, I do have an initiative to empower women in my village in tourism. So, okay, you need to tell me exactly what the initiative is. You need to send me the documents that prove that you are implementing. You need to show me how many women are benefiting from it. So the candidacy is really something that is about information, and then we call it the proof. And also that needs to be included in everything that is provided to the advisory board. And then it was very interesting. We had the announcement in December in Madrid in our General Assembly, and actually we had quite a number of villages traveling around the world and joined us in Madrid, despite the challenges that we still face in traveling, and which also are improving significantly in recent times. So it's also the importance of building, I call it the community of the villages, so that they know each other, they start working with each other. And sometimes even villages in different parts of the world, they will have the same problems, and they can really advance in that dynamic between each other.
Is there any difference or yes, the difference between the tourism villages and what some of my colleagues are doing, like cultural tourism?
Well, cultural tourism is a critical issue of the villages. It's one of them. I think our approach is, I would say, an holistic approach in looking into tourism as a driver of rural development. So touching every point where tourism can actually improve the well-being of the villages and the well-being of the people living in the villages. Culture obviously is a big part of it, but it's very much looking into the overall assessment.
Okay, and then it's for sustainable development. So where do you see this initiative in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Well, our objective is, first of all, to grow more and more this community of villages. We really believe in the power of people coming together and learning from each other. Obviously, also, one of the objectives is the more we talk about rural tourism, the more it gets a priority into policy agendas. So for us, it is important that national governments have specific strategies to promote tourism and rural development, because the potential it has for rural areas. And at the same time, obviously, looking back 5 years, we want to see the impact in the villages that are working with us. So we obviously in the candidacy, we also ask them a series of data that every year we can look back and say, okay, how have these data evolved?
And then it's quite an interesting topic, talking about Africa and the rural villages in Africa and how they're benefiting out of it. And with the currently innovations and development of ICTs and technology and everything, do you think it's really possible to achieve this, and yet to have those villages instill the normal form that you want to feel like I'm in the village and I'm feeling like I'm here with all
authentic.
This
Yeah, it's always, in tourism, it's one of the biggest challenges we have. There's a concept which I like very much, which is dynamic conservation. And I think we need to evolve, but we need to keep the essence. I always have this example, no, when you think about gastronomy and traditional dishes, but at the same time, it's interesting to innovate on traditional dishes. So it's the balance between two and how one enriches the other as well. So I think the essence and the soul of the village always, obviously for us, it's critical. It needs to be put in value, and sometimes being put in value means keeping it as it is, or also adding some innovation into it.
What lessons have you learned as UNWTO during these initiatives, and you think maybe there's room for more improvising for the next ones?
Well, I think the good thing for us was, first of all, the ministries were in direct contact with the villages also, because the fact that it had to be the ministries that would propose the villages, it created in many countries, first of all, the ministries were looking into the villages, created links between them as well. We heard from countries saying, oh, we now have a project that goes beyond this because we were in contact with them. So it's very rewarding also to see how it creates movement in the countries themselves. So this for us also, it's very, very unique in terms of saying, okay, what we really want is for tourism to be part of this agenda.
Mm-hmm. And my last question for our conversation today. We have had almost 20 months of lockdowns. We have seen one of the industry that has suffered a lot is the tourism industries. This is my last but not least questions. What are the numbers towards recovery, not what we have lost, towards recovery? Are we seeing any great future before us? Are we seeing light at the end of the tunnel? And what can you say the lessons that the tourism industry have learned during that time?
Well, I think definitely there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the light is bright. We look back 1 year ago and we think where we were and how much we have advanced. We are seeing more and more countries lifting restrictions. Many countries now don't need testing except vaccination only. There's inclusive, some countries already taking out totally any COVID-related restrictions. So we are seeing a significant improvement, and particularly when we think about time, it's been very recent because it was only in January we were talking about Omicron, and we were talking about new lockdowns and new measures. And we have seen in the last 2 to 3 weeks that there has been a significant movement in opening up. So we do expect that to have a direct impact, as it has had in the past. One of the good things we've seen with tourism is whenever there's an opening, there's demand. So demand is there, people want to travel. It's just that travel restrictions have been obviously one of the major obstacles to traveling. So we do see, obviously, we're still far from the numbers of the pre-pandemic. There's still a long way to recover the numbers that we had, but the growth is positive on what we have lost. We're gaining ground little by little. Overall, for the world, we do not expect the data to be at the same level as 2019 before 2024, but there will be very different situations per region. And we also seen, very interestingly, more regional travel, domestic travel growing very much. And that's an opportunity. You were asking about lessons learned. I think I would say 3 things. One, definitely coordination. We need to have crisis preparedness mechanisms in place in the country where tourism, health, other ministries are activated and have a strategic structure ready to act in these cases. We have seen how the pandemic has called for more coordination. The second one, domestic tourism, I think it's one of the lessons that we've seen, how domestic tourism can be a driver in times of crisis, but we need to look at it also in terms of not crisis. How can we motivate more domestic tourism? And the third one, the issue of digital. Obviously, we've seen how it has accelerated all our lives, and we need to really invest in supporting the sector in terms of digital. More than 80% are SMEs, small companies. They need support and they need that advancement.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sandra, for your time. And I hope that most of us have really learned and enjoyed. And this was actually broadcasted live on TBC Online, our YouTube video, and the link will be shared after these discussions. And before you say goodbye to us, what advice can you give to us, especially Tanzanians? Because I haven't seen any village from Tanzania, yet we have a lot.
I'm sure we're going to have them this year. And, I think it's just, it is an amazing opportunity to really bring tourism into rural areas. And I'm sure the Tanzanian government has that very clear and very priority in their minds. We also know last year, the pilot, the deadlines were very tight. So this year we'll have much more time to present your candidacies. And I'm sure we will have amazing villages from all around the world, and especially from Africa.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for your time.
Thank you, Gloria. It's been a pleasure. And I invite all of you to discover our villages online, just Best Tourism Villages, and you'll find them.
Thank you so very much. And for you, my dear viewer, we had a lovely conversation with Sandra Carvalho, who's Director of Market Intelligence and Competitiveness from the United Nations World Tourism Organization. And our topic of the day was the role of tourism villages in boosting tourism and economic activities in rural Africa. She has given us the whole scope, the whole idea, but also the criteria used. And for you, my dear viewer, who is really interested in tourism and sustainable development, I believe this is the best initiatives whereby we can organize our communities to come together and benefit out of it. And as she has said, they do give support. They actually teach us, and they give support to the people who want to participate. And not only that, but they build network out of people who really do the same thing in order to make sure that we all grow together. And as she said, dynamic conservation, that's the word I got from her. That's all is needed in order to make sure that we do develop and yet to sustain not only the economies, but also the surroundings, and make sure we have a sustainable development. Till next time, it's me, Gloria Michael from TBC. Bye.